Welcome, ladies and gentlewomen, to Peak Lesbian, an exclusive podcast. If you like the work I do here and want to support the podcast, you can do so by becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack or buy me a coffee. Links will be in the show notes. For any woman who may not know, I was once trans-identified, living 4 years as a quote-unquote trans man. There's a very special place in my heart for my lesbian sisters who detransition and come home to be their true selves. One of these women is Gina, and I hope you enjoy our conversation and take away something good from it, like I have. Thank you, Gina. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So Gina and me met, gosh, how long has it been now? 6 months, maybe?
At least 6 months, yeah.
You know, you reached out to me. Gina is a detransitioned woman. How do I put it? You don't identify as a lesbian, correct?
Correct.
You don't, but you don't, you're, what did you tell me the other day? You're leaving labels off for right now.
I'm
right?
leaving, yeah, you said it better than I could. I'm leaving labels off, yeah.
But you do have same-sex attraction. You are attracted to women.
I am, and okay. I'm not ashamed to admit that or say that, ironically, yeah.
So, you know, I like to give some room for women who are detransition and trying to figure themselves out. And like I've said before on this podcast, yes, it's lesbian focused, but I do include bisexual women as well, and same-sex attracted women, because, you know, it takes some time sometimes, and there is some wiggle room there. So before we get into really having a chat, can you just kind of give the audience kind of a brief timeline of your trans identification, your transition, and then your ceasing to still take the meds?
Yes. I began physically transitioning. I dislike the word. I began physically altering my body in 2010 when I was 50 years old. That's when I started the testosterone. And about 4 years later, 2014, had the double mastectomy, continued testosterone. 2017, had the full hysterectomy. And then in 2023, June of 2023, I let go of that mantle. And since then, I have been, for lack of a better word, detransitioning. I dislike that word too, because it's a misnomer, but
I know, I'm with you. The language is screwy. I mean, do you like the term re-identify as a woman?
No, because the word identify, I'm kind of picky right now. The word identify kind of gets my goat a little bit, because it's all about identification and self-IDing and all that stuff. And I identified as a man and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't even like the word identify. It's going to take me a while before the dust settles on these terms, I think.
Yeah.
Those 13 years that I lived that, you know, and identified.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's a long time. I think the biggest question is probably going to pop up right away, so I'll ask it. You started your transition at how old?
Yeah, can you believe it? I was 50 freaking years old.
50 years old. People are going to kind of I think a lot of people will be blown away by that. They'll ask the question, why?
Right.
What in hindsight, what spurred you to do that?
Yeah, and nothing happens overnight. It seemingly happened overnight, but it was a lifetime in progress. I mean, in retrospect, when I think about it, when I reflect, the bottom line is the driving force. I mean, there are other factors involved, but I think the driving force was reconciling the same-sex attraction. The driving force of my physical transition would be that I started seeing myself as the invisible man, so to speak. And I could come out as the guy. I could love a woman as a man. And that was my dream. That was always my dream. Why then? Well, it had been some years for me to be able to, my daughter had grown up and moved out of the house. So my focus on parenting was taken for the most part. I mean, she'll always be my baby girl, of course, as parents, we see them as that. But when she moved out, I started to reflect more on myself and what I wanted. And that thing came up again. It was there for so long, but when I no longer had to worry about my daughter, she was on her own and she was doing well. All it took was just like the catalyst of getting another crush on a woman. This time it was a lesbian. She wasn't a straight woman, so there wasn't that unreachable, that inaccessible, but it wasn't. It was unrequited, and for some reason that really triggered something in me that I know I'm a man because of the love I have for her, and somehow I got it in me. And it was around that time, 2010. I was in academia at that time. I hadn't finished my degree, and I was hanging out at the LGBTQI Center. And so this awareness of transitioning was there. Yeah. And so it was there. It was in the air. And so it was just, I was ripe for that. And then I started watching YouTube videos. I really got into the YouTube videos and started following these women who were changing their bodies and living their dream, as that's how I saw it. And I followed them very closely. And it was just, it's as if I got on this train and it was full speed ahead. There was no taking me off this train. And they just confirmed to me every time I watched those videos of these women, these older women, I sought out older women,
Okay.
There were a few older women on there.
Really? About what age did you say? Because it's been a while since I've looked at that side of YouTube.
Right. They were, one woman, I think they were in their 40s.
Okay. Yeah. Were they lesbian?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as I gleaned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From your perception, yes. And I think that's what matters.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
The YouTube thing is interesting. Every woman I've talked to who's gone down this route talks about that. For me, it was about 6 months of intense watching YouTube. For other women, it was about the same, or a year or 3 months or whatever. But there's this intense, in hindsight, see it as indoctrination. Watching those videos, that really embracing that fantasy that you could become this man, and life's going to be easier. It's gonna. Did you think that it would be easier for you to have relationships with women as a man? Is that a little bit of that?
Yes. I felt like they wanted me. Not that I saw that it would. They wanted me to. Not that they wanted me to be the man, but if I could be the man, then I could have the woman. But the irony of it is that I started realizing that you can't run away from the cold hard reality of that I'm always going to be a woman. No matter what I do to my body, I'm going to always be the woman. And there's always going to be that confession that, by the way, I'm not really a man. It's like doomed to failure. And on top of that, I never got the woman. I never pursued the woman because guess what? My all-encompassing mission in life was that I be perceived as a man. It superseded any possibility of having a girlfriend or a wife or anything like that. That somehow just ended up dominating my life.
So you didn't date or anything when you were trans identified?
Because something happened to me psychologically with the testosterone. It was literally, I call it Mr. Toad's wild ride because it awakened, I went down a very dark path psychologically. when my testosterone dosage was upped, um, I the sex drive was off the charts. I mean, off the charts. And it brought up actually trauma from my childhood. And it was so much that I couldn't handle it that I had them lower the dosage at that point. This was early on. But then I had them slowly uptick it because I knew that was the only way I could get to the body that I wanted. And so I got used to it. But the problem was that it started tweaking with my psychology, in that I started fantasizing about men.
Mm.
And I hadn't done that before. My attraction was solely for women.
Yeah.
In that regard. And it's a real mind fuck. It really, really fucked with me.
Yeah. And I've heard this from other women as well.
Mm.
Other women who, after coming out the other side, are lesbian. They own that label. They've come to terms with their sexuality, but when they were trans identified, they were engaging with men. They were having sex with men. And they weren't doing it out of actual legitimate attraction, from what I could get and what I hear from them. They were not doing it out of legitimate attraction. They were doing it out of all these other reasons that are very vast.
Wow.
But a lot of it has to do with just validation that they're real men if they could have sex with, say, gay men. Which is one of the pursuits I've seen women do.
It actually was a romantic notion to me to be a gay man. It was, this sounds so crazy when I say that now. I can't tell you how relieved I am to be off that train, out of that boat. I cannot tell you how relieved not to have that constant, that I don't know what the word for it is. I feel like I can breathe. I did not actually act it out with men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just by the grace of God. I'm just going to say that because I came very close to just pimping myself out, so to speak. I could have just done that, something like that, because I saw other trans identified women doing that.
Why do you think where do you think this came from?
The sexual,
this desire, whatever it is, whether it was actual physical sexual desire or not, where did this desire, do you think, come from to be with men or engage with men?
It's interesting. I've thought about it, and my memory always goes back to a talk I had with my psychologist at the time. She said, because of my dabbling in porn as well, she said I was reenacting the abuse that I suffered as a child, that I was reliving it. It was my way of taking control of it.
Oh, yeah. Do you know that rings so true? I like that. I'm nodding my head. I'm like, yes. This also makes sense why I won't name names, but a very popular trans identified female. I think that was her cat. That's why she's engaged with men so much and done porn. I think it's a re-traumatization, but under the guise of taking power back, which you're not. You're re-abusing yourself.
Exactly. In fact, when I have sometimes a memory will be triggered of of certain pornographic things and thoughts that I used to have, and now I see with a clear view. Now I see what it was, and I feel like I have to make amends to myself, even because of what I essentially put myself through. It's real. I was in denial, but it's real.
What were you in denial about?
At the time, I was in denial about re-traumatizing myself. I was like, oh, so what? So what?
Okay.
Yeah. Like my therapist, my psychologist would tell me stuff like, so what? It's all good. It's like, reason gets removed or from my psyche, got removed from my psyche temporarily, temporary insanity. Seriously.
I feel that. I feel that temporary insanity. I do.
Right?
I remember my after the dust settled and it was all said and done, my wife said that
Mm.
in those first 2 years, she really wondered if I had a brain tumor
Wow.
because
Really?
I just had changed so much. I
Shit.
just and we had been together for what 13 years, 14 years previous, we'd already been together for a very long time. So it cannot be understated
Mm-mm.
how this takes hold of somebody, both mentally and physically, because you are taking very high power drugs, that are, and we know drugs affect the brain. It impacts the brain, it impacts thought process and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, we don't even know what's going on here, really. Um, the thing that's interesting is the sex drives must have been crazy, especially as a 50-year-old woman, because it's at that age, it seems like you probably would have already started like perimenopause and started maybe the downward um
I
slope
have.
of that situation.
I had.
Do you think that had any impact in it? Just kind of, because that's a huge transition for women.
You mean, do you think that the menopause had an impact in the transition?
Yeah. Do you think any of that emotional, mental, physical turmoil? Because for some women, it's very rough, and it can be very rough mentally on them to go through perimenopause and menopause.
Well, it's ironic because before, I can't remember the exact year, but before the transition, I actually had seen a women's specialist doctor about getting on HRT, the right kind of HRT, because of my perimenopausal symptoms at the time when I was teaching at the university. I remember canceling a class because of the hot flashes and just um, the emotional ups and downs I was going through. And I got a lot of relief from that HRT. And then I decided to transition. So I dropped that HRT and went on to full time T. So it's as if the perimenopause didn't exist. It's as if it canceled it out almost,
Oh
the
yeah,
male level testosterone.
yeah. But still, that must be a shock. That must have been a shock to the system to have the sex drive skyrocket. I mean, it was for me, and I was 33, 34 when I did it.
I mean, my sex drive had definitely gone way down, and I didn't actually take that into consideration until you just mentioned it, that that was a factor, definitely.
What now? Back when you started your transition, did you have to have a therapist letter to get on hormones?
To get on hormones, that was interesting, because
This was 2010, right?
2010,
Okay.
I remember my friend driving me to San Francisco to the, is it okay to name the clinic? I don't even know if it still exists.
Oh
It was
yeah,
the
name them.
Lion Martin Clinic. I don't even
Uh-huh.
know if it still exists. She drove me down there, and I don't remember if I had the letter or not at that time. If I remember correctly, I was under the understanding that I did need a letter, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember if I had the letter in hand at that time. I just remember going there to consult about getting testosterone. And in the appointment, I thought it was a guy. Actually, it turns out to be a trans identified woman doctor. And she gave me the prescription on the spot, practically. And I said, "Aren't I supposed to give you a letter?" And she said, "You're old enough. You know what you're doing. I can tell."
I can tell. I've talked to you all of what, 5 or 10 minutes. I
Yeah,
can
so I walked
tell.
out with a prescription. Yeah, because of my age. That was like carte blanche.
Did you see a therapist or a psychologist of any kind go? Like, did you go to them with your struggles with, like, say, gender well, did you have gender dysphoria? Did you have what they consider gender dysphoria?
This is the thing. I was reflecting on this today, actually, because my so-called gender dysphoria was based on the faulty notion that in order to love a woman, in order to exhibit behaviors that, in order to explain my behaviors that seem to be like boys, I'm really a boy. Because that would explain my boy-like behavior towards women. So if that's what gender dysphoria is, and I would be loath to admit it at that time because the going narrative was that sex is different from gender. And so same-sex attraction has nothing to do with gender dysphoria. So I was not going to admit that to anybody, that was my driving force. So I conjured up my dysphoric experience even more. My gender dysphoria, I think, also was a label really that was applied to just hating my body ever since day one, and hating my boobs. I mean, I was objectified as a teenager in high school by the high school boys. I had some pretty shitty experiences, and I hated my boobs. It was wonderful getting those removed. And that I could label, it was a convenient label to slap on that. I wasn't going to admit at that time. Of course not. It just seemed to all fit like a puzzle. Like, okay, I have these, I'm acting like a boy, at 10 years old. I confessed to my friend that I was supposed to be a boy because I saw her. She had early puberty. She was already developing. She was 11. I was 10. And she had this boyfriend. And I thought he was a jerk. He treated her like shit. I was 10 and I saw this. I had a mad crush on her. She was beautiful. She should have me as a boyfriend instead. But that couldn't happen. So I must have been a boy. I should be a boy. I'm supposed to be a boy. So I told her I was supposed to be a boy. So you add those experiences, and it's convenient to say, yeah, it's gender dysphoria. But really, it was just inextricably linked to my same-sex attraction at the end of the day, and my hate for my own body. There was plenty of that because of what happened to me as a kid and as a young adult. And,
Did the therapist you see, how long did you see a therapist about these feelings or transidentification or whatever?
Okay, now that's the interesting thing to me, is that this psychologist knew me, or at least I thought she knew me. I started seeing her way before I identified as trans, way before then. I started seeing her when I started my degree here when I started at this university. I started seeing her to get over issues with my mother. It was
And what year would this have been?
About 2004.
Oh, well, years ago. Okay.
Dude, she knew me. And okay, there was a gap of time there where I stopped seeing her because I thought I needed to get into my body. I needed to do body work. I need to do all this other stuff. So I left her for a while, but then I ended up returning to her. She was a good psychologist, I thought. So I was already seeing her when I identified as trans. And I remember like it was yesterday when I came out to her as trans, she half jokingly said, well, don't go out and get surgery. And that was her honest response. And she was half joking, but I know she was half serious too, because she didn't take it seriously at first. But then the more I talked about it and the more I pushed, she started getting on board, and she didn't fight back. And I kind of wonder, I should say, what it would have been like had she maintained her honesty, but she had already been indoctrinated, no doubt. And so she went along with the program.
So she didn't ask any probing questions that might have got you talking about the reasons or the drive or why you wanted to do this.
She sometimes she would ask a question, but it was so few and far between. I don't even remember.
I mean, do you think you would have been open to having honest conversations with her around this stuff?
No, until a certain point when I did ask her. That's the irony of it.
Oh, okay.
No, I was adamant. I didn't want anybody to rock my boat. Everybody had to get on board, including my psychologist, until I started questioning. And that was before I had my hysterectomy or double mastectomy. I can't remember. It must have been before the double mastectomy.
But you were on testosterone.
I was on testosterone.
Okay.
But it was early on. It was before I started looking like a guy. And I asked her, I remember this, Carol. I remember asking her, do you think I'm really trans? I wanted to know, I wanted that if there was going to be any pushback, I was opening the door for it.
You were. I know.
And she said like that.
Yeah. I know. And it hurts, don't it?
Yeah.
It hurt. It fucking hurts me. Like, because I did the same thing. I fucking asked her.
Really?
I asked her.
Yeah.
I one time, twice I asked my therapist, do you think I'm really trans? Was one of them. And the other one was, do you think I'm doing this because of my past abuse? Gosh. Because there's this real back part of my brain, this little voice back there that's trying to reason and knows, but can't come to the front and actually say it because it's too painful.
Yeah.
And this is why this is the job of psychiatry, psychology. This is the job of mental health, especially when it comes to very dramatic, life-changing interventions to treat some kind of illness. You have to have that shit gate kept. And there's absolutely none. Even back in 2010, there wasn't really much of anything.
The more I think about it, the more I think about myself. I'm good about thinking about myself. The human psyche is like, it's like a diamond. The angles and the facets around us are infinite. It's infinite. You can't say, yeah, you're trans. This is the prescription. Have a nice day. That's like, so it's fucked up. So fucked up. It's like, the reason I say that, I bring that up right now is I also, the more I think about this, the more I think, yeah, what about that? What about that? And what about that? And what about that? I'm a burn survivor. I was in a car fire when I was 21. So I had a huge shock to my body. Talk about body image.
Right. Yeah.
I had a lot of recovery to do. I'm still recovering over that. But there was that one thing about, beauty and being a woman and wearing makeup and all this bullshit. Becoming a man, you don't have to worry about what you look like anymore. You can have this pot belly. You don't have to wear makeup. You don't have to worry about the scars, about the wrinkles, about all this other shit, flabby skin, all this other shit. They somehow get a get out of jail free card with that. And I'm not going to lie, that was an aspect. I started looking good. I started filling out. My skin got thicker. I think I looked good as a guy. The problem is I'm not a guy, and I will never be a guy. And I'm grateful that I came to this place that I got off the train when I did. That I still got a chance to maybe live out a last chapter of my life, maybe a few last chapters as the woman that I am.
So I'm gonna ask the question that I think is people are gonna wonder about, who are not familiar with this or maybe not on the same page as I am with it, or we are. They're gonna say, well, she was 50 years old. She knew what the hell she was doing. She's an adult. She could do what she wants.
Yeah, you know what? If it hadn't been handed to me on a silver platter like that, where would I be? How much? I mean, I don't know, but the fact that it was made so easy, I didn't have to pay 1 penny for my surgeries, by the way. My insurance paid for all of it. Didn't have to have the letter. If that hadn't been handed to me on a silver platter, if I had to work for it, if I had to, pay out of pocket for it, things might have been different. I might have dealt with the things, all this and that and the other and the other and the other. I might have dealt with that shit because that shit doesn't go away. It does
No.
not go away. I'm back, you know, I'm back there again. I'm in a different place now. But when do we ever know what we're doing? I'm sitting here today. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. When do we ever know?
People think they do, I guess.
You're supposed to know at 18, are you supposed to?
Yeah, you're an adult. You're supposed to know. You're an adult. You're supposed to know everything. Can I ask though? Have you had a lot of mental health issues throughout your life?
Well, if you call if you call suicidal ideation for the most of my life, if you call that mental health issues, yes, and been on several antidepressants that they really didn't work at the end of the day. They were more mind numbing than anything else. But yeah, I've had my share of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked that because, I think that's maybe that's the key to why some adults don't do it and some do. And I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it's those of us who have had a lot of trauma in our lives and haven't resolved that and struggle with a lot of mental health issues. When you're in pain all the time, mental pain and sometimes physical pain, you're always looking for an out, right? And trans identification really fits like a key for so many things, especially a super traumatized, depressed lesbian. Like that is the ultimate key, I think, for us. The get out of our torture jail card, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, for sure.
So how long ago did you stop taking testosterone?
I stopped taking it in, let's see, it was June, July. Oh my gosh, wait. So I know it's 2023. It was um the last dose I think was October 2023, or was it September? I can't remember. I have it written down on a calendar. It was I tapered off
Mm-hmm.
slowly. And God, I mean, good thing I tapered off slowly. It was bad enough psychologically and emotionally doing that. I can't imagine how bad it would be if I just gone off cold turkey, you know?
Oh, same. I tapered too, and quite a bit. And I swear to God, I feel like I slept for 4 months. Like there was 4 months where I was just my body and my brain was just trashed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, just tired. I just would wake up tired every day, having to force myself out of bed and just having this thought, I'm tired of my life. Like just I'm tired, just tired.
Mm-hmm. What
All
what made
encompassing.
what made you stop?
It was really interesting, an unexpected vehicle, actually. I was in a oh, that was something else I was going to say was that I wonder sometimes how many of us are creatives because buying into this thing of I'm a guy, I'm really a guy. I think my imagination it facilitated that. But in any case, I was in a business program for artists, an online business program for artists, and a part of what we did in this program was do some soul searching, and it was this process whereby we search our soul, we go through this process and find out what our life's mission is, and then we have our art serve that mission. And I had discovered my mission, and I was making videos of myself sharing my mission. I have my goatee, and I'm kind of buff. I'm sharing my mission around my art. I created over 70 pieces of art, and I was sharing my mission around it. And as I was watching myself on the video, something was wrong. And it wasn't the usual, God, I look horrible, or I hate my voice, or whatever. It wasn't that usual stuff. Something deeper. Something was off. And then I had this realization, I'm serving the wrong mission. I'm already serving another mission. And I had the realization that mission was being a man. and it was the wrong mission. And when I had that realization, I knew I had to drop it. And it was so freeing. I felt free. I felt like a load was off. And I remember shaving my head, practically almost shaving my whole body, and like getting rid of some of my clothes that were all dark colors. And it was as if I had to cleanse myself. Yeah, I really felt that I began to see testosterone as a poison in my body. It was like someone turned on the lights. Just everything changed for me at that moment. It hasn't been the same since. I'm free. I feel free. And ironically, I feel at a place of radical acceptance of my body and my womanhood. Ironically, I say, because half of my womanhood's gone physically. I mean, I don't have any women insides. I don't have my boobs anymore. There's a sculpture I saw when I was in Germany recently. It was in a hotel room. It's this sculpture of obviously a woman, and it's hollow. It's all hollow in the middle. And she's like this, and she's sitting cross-legged, and she's hollow in the middle. And that's me. That is me. I saw myself so bad with that. I had to take a photo of it because that's me. But I'm still here, damn it. I'm still here. And that's the irony, is that I've sacrificed all of this to get to the place of radical acceptance that I never had before. It's crazy.
Isn't that just some shit though? Like I go, did I have to go through all this to come to this place? Like, and you know, hindsight is really shitty, but no, I didn't. You know, I didn't have to do this to come to this place. I really think now that finding the right kind of treatment, therapeutic treatment, and for me personally, antidepressants have worked very well. Finding meds that worked for me would have really, I think, gone a long ways in helping me become whole without having to go through, this.
And that's the thing. It's 13 years. That's a chunk of my life. That's a chunk of my life serving that mission, man.
Did you feel like, so you felt like your life was on pause?
Yes. And this is the irony, more irony for you. I felt like I was holding my breath for 13 years because I heard Blair White say one time, and this is why the trans community, the so-called trans community, got pissed at her. One of the reasons. Blair White said, yeah, I'm moving in the world. I'm an empty shell of a woman. I'm not a woman. I'm pretending, or something to that effect. Blair said, that made me take a breath. I remember the moment when I heard Blair say that, I felt like I could breathe. Like, yeah, this is a farce. This is a failed experiment. This isn't real. This isn't authentic. And then when I had that experience with the business program and the mission, I literally felt like I could breathe again. Physically. It's crazy, Carol.
Did you feel like you lost something when you were, those 13 years you were identifying as ma'am?
I left myself. I feel like I abandoned myself. I feel like I abandoned my womanhood. I feel like I abandoned my relationship with my daughter, the mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
It was if I were to label it in a chapter in a book, which I am writing my memoir, I would label it, I think I just got my chapter title, The Great Abandonment.
Oh, wow.
The Great Abandonment.
All right, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the side that you're a parent. How did this impact your daughter?
In the beginning, she was accepting. She did accept it, but when I first shared it with her, I remember we were walking. I was visiting her, and we were walking down the street, and she said, "I want to share with you about the music I've been listening to." And I remember her sharing that, and I told her I decided to transition. And the first thing that came out of her mouth was, she said, "You'll still be nurturing, won't you?" And I will never forget her saying that, because it told me there was something about being a mom that was nurturing. I never saw myself as nurturing, but she saw me as nurturing. That was part of the package for her. And that was the beginning of my doubts. Actually, it was filed away. It was one of those things that was filed away. There were a lot of moments like that were filed away. That was the first one. And then in her accepting me, deep down inside, it didn't feel right. Like, this isn't right. Like, she's accepting me, yes. And, and there would be moments like when I was started to use the men's bathroom, right? And she was waiting for me outside and she said, Dad, and I could tell it was uncomfortable for her to say that, like it was just phony and just uncomfortable. But I started to feel a loss. That's the loss element, actually. The real loss was that I started to feel a loss of the mother-daughter relationship. I continued to pretend that it was okay, but deep down inside, I knew it was okay. Then it came a turning point where my daughter no longer accepted the transitioning. She found her own. She started going to church, and she found her own spirituality, and she started. She didn't approve of it. Let's put it that way. We still had a relationship. She didn't put me out of her life or anything like that. But she wouldn't do the pronoun thing. She wouldn't refer to me as he anymore. And she didn't do it out of malice or anything, but she also didn't want to teach her kids that, but with the first grandkids though, she was calling me he. That she was still calling me he with the first grandkids. And later on, it affected my grandkids, actually. I remember her asking me if this was really was this really the right thing for me to do? There were many moments like that, Carol, between my daughter and I, that it was like a compass. It was saying, hey, something's off with this. I couldn't make it work. And then I remember I was in the Facebook group for trans men, putting quotations, air quotes on that. And I was seeking out other ones who had grown children to see if others were having similar experience with this feeling of loss and kind of like a grieving. Because no matter how much you pretend to be a father, I had let go of that. I thought, I'm never going to be her father. I'm never going to be her father. So I'd let go of that. But pretending that everything's okay, that you still have that mother-daughter relationship, when being a mom is being a woman. You cannot be a mom without being a woman. You can't separate the two. And I remember asking a parent in this group, have you experienced that? And they said, yeah, but and they put, I don't have a relationship with my daughter anymore because I have to be true to who I am.
Oh, Lord.
And it just felt so cold.
Yeah.
When I read that, I thought, I wouldn't want to live anymore with my daughter if I couldn't have that relationship with my daughter. I wouldn't. It's such extreme denial. And then when I finally told my daughter I decided to drop that whole mission, I could see the change in her face. I could see, you really mean it? She didn't believe me at first.
Was it relief?
It was relief, and she cried because I know she got her mom back. Mm-hmm. I know that's how she saw it. She doesn't have to say anything. She doesn't have to say anything. But the thing is, it has a ripple effect, Carol. It affected my granddaughter, my first grandkids, my first grandson, my first granddaughter. My first granddaughter, she knew me as a guy. She knew me as Grand Row, not grandma or grandpa, but Grand Row. She saw me as a guy. She thought my daughter's mom had died. And I could see the pain in my daughter's face when my daughter told me one time that she had told her, she said, Mommy, your mommy died, didn't she? And the pain in my daughter's face when she was telling me that, and thinking to myself, shit, this shit's real. Essentially, I had died.
Yeah.
And then, turning the ship around, my granddaughter ended up crying to my daughter, saying, Grandma lied to me. Why did Grandma lie to me? It's a ripple effect.
And it is ultimately a huge lie. It is a huge lie. And you're being dishonest with everyone in your life. And not just the people who love you, not just the people you're related to and your friends and everything, which these are the people you don't want to hurt, and you hurt them. Okay? Because you cannot do this. You're not an island. You cannot do this completely alone. Most people have people they're related to. But not only are you lying to the people close to you, you're lying to every single person you come in contact with. That really struck me after the fact. I was lying and being dishonest to everything all the time.
Mhm.
Having to hide my past, having to not talk about my childhood, having to
Yes.
switch pronouns if I did or leave pronouns out,
Yes. Censoring. Oh, yeah. Editing all the
editing
time.
big time because when when I was trans identified, I was what they call stealth. I didn't identify as trans. I didn't tell anybody. Only my family knew because they knew me before. But the world at large did not. I mean, I didn't know what they knew. Maybe they knew, I don't know, but I didn't tell nobody. But that's just such a huge dishonesty. And to be quite frank, I can understand why my wife thought I had a brain tumor because I have always been the kind of woman who is, even as a kid, I've always been the kind of person who is really honest and don't like lying. Like lying and dishonesty has always been an issue with me. So like, how did I get in this?
Oh my gosh. Same.
Yeah.
I
Which
mean,
I think that's why it doesn't work for me. That's why it didn't work for me. Ultimately, it didn't work for me because I can't lie. I can't lie for very much. It comes a point where I have to realize it's bullshit.
yeah,
You know,
it's a performance 24/7.
it really is. It really is. It's LARPing, big time LARPing. Anybody who's a dork and knows about LARPing is man
You got
LARPing.
You have to educate me. I don't know the.
Live action role playing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Shit.
So, like, the folks that go to the Renaissance fairs, or maybe you'll see them in the park doing the little sword fights and they dress up and LARPing, pretending to be something you're not, fantasy stuff,
Right.
except, you're LARPing as the opposite sex.
And it's always like I felt like I always had a secret. I always had that secret.
Did you miss any of the way you interacted with women?
Oh, are you kidding? It was ripped away from me. It was shit. It was ripped away from me. It felt like. I
Yeah, that was
mean,
that was something I didn't expect.
mm,
Because I always thought that I was so unlike women. I was so unlike other women. I was more like a guy and blah 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 until I was, I guess, passing for the most part and, had a big beard and everything. And I realized um I missed that communication with women. I missed the what
yeah.
is it called? The community. I missed that community and that relationship you have with women.
Yeah.
Just on the street, in a restaurant, in a bathroom, whatever. Like just.
It's very lonely.
Yeah,
Very
there's
lonely.
something really missing there.
Oh my gosh. And hanging out with groups of guys, it was boring as hell. It was, I'm telling you, I remember hanging out with a group of guys at this pizza place, and I thought, is this all there is? How soon can I leave? This is painful. It was painful. I'm so, I'm so glad not to be trying to do that guy thing anymore.
What do you see as the positives of your of detransitioning, for lack of a better word? I'm with you. I don't really like it either, but that's what people understand. What is the positives been for you on the other side of this?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I feel that I accept my body. I think I mentioned this more than I have ever in my life. I've embraced being a woman, whereas I never embraced being a woman before. Even I embraced the empty shell of a woman that I saw in that sculpture.
Can I ask you real quick, what does womanhood mean to you now?
It's being in this body. This is being embodied in a female bodied. It's all about that.
Yeah. What did it mean to you before?
Before it meant a curse, it meant oppression, it meant I was jealous of my brother ever since I could remember. I hated my dad. I was jealous of men. The glass ceiling, never being enough. And now it's all of it. I'm so happy to not be what I was used to be jealous of. It's funny, that I remember my psychologist is another moment in time that I remember when I was trying to man up. I was posturing. I was trying to be what I wasn't, like a gorilla, like and I remember telling my psychologist my frustration with that. She goes, "Do you really want to be like them?" And that kind of stuck with me. I never forgot that. But I felt like I had to be in order to
Yeah.
pass. I had to be. It's so ironic because the more I tried to be like that, the more I didn't pass. And now that I'm not even trying, more people see me as a guy. And I don't want to be seen as a guy per se anymore. Although I'm not trying anymore to be seen in any way. That's the beauty. That's the good thing now. I'm not trying to be seen by you or by anybody. Yes, of course, I'm going to probably wear a hat more times than not, because without my hat, I look more like a guy. I don't know, the male balding thing. I don't know, but I love hats though. So I love hats, and it's fun. It's a great excuse to wear hats.
You get creative, right?
Yeah, it's my trade-off. I finally get to wear all the hats I want. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I've always loved hats. Now that I care less about how people see me, I feel like I can dress more the way I want, you know. And of course, being a mom and a grandma, it's being that too. I've been gifted with that also. But at its very core, it is the embodiment. It is, I mean, I wish that for everybody. I wish everybody to be in their body. Just
Right.
be in your body, man and woman, girl, boy. Yeah, just be in it.
And is your relationship okay with your family now? Is it healing?
I'm so fortunate, Carol. I can't tell you. It's a gift. My grandkids are a gift. My daughter is a gift. My son-in-law is a gift. They've given me so much grace. I mean, they went through it. They went through it. All of them went through it with me getting pissed that they weren't using my pronouns. They've embraced me. They've been patient with me. My daughter is just happy to have her mom back. I will see. I had a talk with my granddaughter, and kids are so forgiving. I said, "How can I make it up to you?" And she said, "Well, give me extra tiny things for my birthday." She likes tiny things.
Tiny.
Anything tiny. So I went overboard with with that for her, but I think there's going to be more to it. The living amends to just giving her more tiny things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But my daughter, I'm waiting for the moment when she gets free from her 6 kids to, like we've talked about this, how I want to make some time for her and me, and just to let her just to let her know that I that I do regret it, and that to give her the floor, to
Yeah.
really get her a chance of self-expression, because she's been there for me through the whole thing. And I want her to be able to voice whatever she wants to voice about it, that she held back on. But I'm just grateful I still have a relationship with her. I mean, people lose family members over this.
Yeah.
My daughter, yeah, she turned out better than I did. She's smarter than I am. She's kinder than I am. She's beautiful. She's a better mom than I ever was. So I'm grateful.
The making amends part is one of the harder things. It's one of the more painful things. When I had to have that conversation with my son, it really was, I had to be very, very humble. It was a completely humbling experience because I had to let go of all that baggage and control and realize that I did in fact do something very hurtful, and that he had every right to be mad at me. He didn't have to accept any apologies. I did apologize. I did, we had a very honest conversation as much as we could for his age. But he stayed mad at me for a long time.
Wow.
A long time. As
Wow.
even now, sometimes. What? Oh my goodness. Wow. How long has it been now? Almost 5 years since I stopped testosterone. And there are times he will still bring up my old name and ask, what happened to him?
Wow. Oh shit.
Why? Or just bring up the name and look at me like, you know? And we'll have to, I know. And I said, I know. That was a real screwed up thing to do, wasn't it? You know? And he'll look at me and go, yes. He just like, every once in a while, he wants to just remind me, don't do that shit again.
My
But yeah,
oldest.
the making amends part is, and same with my wife, it's just that is something that I think people, when you come out of this, if you really truly come out of it and it wasn't some kind of wonderful gender journey for you and you realize that it was self-destructive, um, it reminds me of recovery of any other thing, like recovering if you're an addict of any kind. I've struggled with alcoholism in the past. So
Same.
like coming out of that, it's the same kind of thing. You took drugs. You did take drugs. You were a drug addict.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And you did some really shitty things when you were a drug addict. And now you have to, you're in recovery.
Carol, I've not heard it said that way, but it's spot on. Damn it, if it isn't spot on, because it altered my mind, it altered my behavior. Holy shit.
Yeah. And I view it like recovery, right? Because you see I've known women to quote detransition and go back to it.
Ooh,
Quite a few.
wow.
And
No.
people always go, oh, I don't understand that. And it's like, I completely understand it because it's an addict. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism, right? Anytime you engage in those kind of things, you are trying to escape through this drug and through this way of living. So when things get tough, oftentimes, where do people go? They go back to alcohol, back to drugs, they go back to transition.
Mm. It says in the 12-step programs, after having had a spiritual awakening, um, that's what I feel like it took for me. I mean, I had all the signs, all the signposts and all those moments, but that still didn't get me off that train. I had to have that awakening. I had to have that psychic change. That psychic change.
For me, it was the classic hit rock bottom situation. you know, and then where do you go from there? There's nowhere
Yeah,
else to go. Well, there is. Do you want to go there?
exactly.
Maybe not. I'll go.
And it wasn't like for me, like where, everything's hunky dory and this is great. And oh shit, I'm serving the wrong mission. No, the doubts were way earlier on. They were way earlier on. I remember writing, the fear down on paper. I have fear this is a failed experiment. But
Absolutely. It is a slow burn. It oftentimes is. There's things along the way that make you go, huh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And heaven forbid you should be wrong. Heaven forbid you could turn around and tell people, sorry, I'm just kidding. Like, like they've been
Yeah.
calling you this other name for all these years and all of a sudden, nah, changed my mind. Sorry. There was a lot more fear on that even than really it took that psychic change to give me the power to not care so much about who was,
I think that women who go through this and come out of it and come back to themselves is one of the more amazing stories. The people who are still living a trans identity, I don't care if they recognize their sex or not. They're not doing the hard work. Women who come out of it do the hard work.
wow.
And that's the way I think of it. It is a rough journey.
Not for the faint of heart.
It's easier to stay trans identified than to not, basically, is what I'm saying. And it's not easy to stay trans identified. I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is for some of us, the pain is so much that it is easier to do that than the other.
Girl, you know what? I'm always thinking it's taken a hell of a lot more courage for me to go this way than it did the other way. It's taken me a hell of a lot more courage to get back to Gina, walk around, appear as a man to most people, and say, "Yeah, I'm Gina."
Yeah.
It's taken more courage to do this. I think you're right on that. I think you're right on that, for sure.
So I'm glad you're here.
Oh man,
I'm glad you're here. It makes me, every time a detransition woman reaches out to me, especially if she is a lesbian or same-sex attracted in some way, it makes me so happy that they came back, because that's why I got into doing this in the first place. Is I was like, I was old when I transitioned. I'm an old detransitioner. I want other women to know that it's never too late.
When I saw your videos, it was like almost like a life preserver, because I felt really alone. So you're doing a lot of good. You're doing a lot of good.
Well, I appreciate all the work you've done. I appreciate you coming on the podcast to talk about your experience. I know it's hard to do, and I know you're probably going to be exhausted after this, and that's okay. Is this shit is hard to talk about. It is. But I think your story is going to do good for other women who are in the same situation or coming out of the situation.
If it does, then that makes my day. Makes my day.